Good hustle. Thank you. Good presentation. All right. I will just follow your notes on those things where I wasn't. All right. Next is action items. Presentation of invoices for August 2017. Is there a motion to accept the invoices as presented?
Motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $2,345,411.07 dated September 21st, 2017.
We have a motion. Is there a second? There's a second. Any questions? Hearing none. Linda.
The vote is open for item F1. The vote is closed. The vote is unanimous for item F1.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the fiscal year 2018 budget. I entertain a motion to adopt the budget as presented. There's a motion by Member Lulu. Is there a second? Second. Second by Member Janik. Any additional discussion or questions at this time?
No, I just think the memo that was included, the materials answered a lot of the questions that we had, and giving a nice breakout, and included the timing of bus leases, capital projects, etc. So it kind of broke down what was actually coming from the operating budget. I think it would be helpful if we just went over exactly like the operations and highlighting the 3% and how we're going to meet that.
Absolutely, I'd be glad to do that. So, as I mentioned earlier, the budget as presented here tonight is unchanged from what was posted for public inspection. Total revenues, $104 million, about 3.49% increase, and expenditures of $101 million, a 4.4% increase, with a total surplus of $2.3 million. When you look at just the operating funds, which is in accordance with board policy, you will see that we have an operating surplus budgeted of $3.3 million, which represents a 3.9% of expenditures. As you know, the board goal is to have at least a 3% surplus of, as measured, of expenditures in order to rebuild the fund balance moving forward. When you look at that increase, the budget proposes a $4 million increase over prior year actual expenditures, which has been documented here as you referenced in the memo. Would bring to the attention that the first item, or the largest, 36% of that increase, or $1.5 million, is for capital projects that are needed to keep the district buildings up to standard, followed by 19%, which would be for salary and benefit increases, or $754,000. So if there's any other questions, that's an overview of the budget.
The capital projects, those were the ones that were done this summer, correct? The 1.5 million.
Right.
That was already spent. Anything we talk about in the future is going to be in the next fiscal year.
That is correct.
And just back to this, the revenue. I mean, obviously, I think we're being conservative. I think I'm fine with that. Of that 3.1, I mean, is it safe to say, I know they're splitting payments differently, but basically, if we were to budgeting for 4 of 6 of the categoricals, which I think is reasonable, that would be about 2.5 million, correct? Like if two of them.
Right. If we budgeted for 2 more.
I just don't think that, the state has 16 billion in bills. They still haven't issued debt to pay it. They might by December, but I don't think, putting out the budget, I don't think we can count on that. So I think I'm comfortable being on the more conservative side.
Good question. Anything else from any of the members? If not, Linda, please open voting.
vote for F2 is open. The vote is closed. The motion is passed unanimously for item F2.
Thank you. Next, item F3, adoption of the 2017 tax levy. Is there a motion to accept the tax levy as presented?
So moved.
There's a motion by member Costick. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by member Janik. Discussion on the tax levy.
Has anything changed from what was presented last week?
No changes from what was presented.
Any other questions?
So the only thing that the budget uses, the revenue was calculated utilizing one growth figure, but in order to make sure that we capture everything, the levy, we left in the growth at 100 million, which we think is high.
That is correct. And when the final new growth number is known, that will be adjusted down by the treasurer, county treasurer.
When is that number known?
Well, typically March, just right before the final levy set in April.
Any other questions from the members? If not, Linda, please open voting.
The vote is open for item F3. The vote is closed. The vote is unanimous. The motion is passed for item F3.
Thank you. Next is item F4, Treasurer's Report for August 2017. Is there a motion to accept the Treasurer's Report as presented?
So moved.
Motion by member Costick. Is there a second? Second by member Doyle. Question?
The expenses through the first 2 months in education are running about $700,000 more than fiscal 17. In transportation, I know the bus lease, but it's even higher than that. The expenses are running about $890,000 more than fiscal 17. And the reports that we got kind of are offset by additional revenue in education of 1.3 million. But can you kind of explain the variances?
Right, so I mean, one of the things that we've discussed and we will prepare for next month is to break the budget down by each fund, so it helps out a little bit, because when it is consolidated, so it is a little harder to track those variances. As you mentioned in transportation, so when we're looking at those, I shouldn't call them variances, it's an analysis of where we're at trending wise. So for example, transportation, we had payments that were made in fiscal year 17, so they weren't made in 17, or fiscal year 16, they weren't made in 17, so artificially 17 was a little lower than what would be the normal trend. So you're experiencing that little higher than normal trend in fiscal year 18. As far as the ed fund, we are trending a little. We were looking at that again today. We do have a reclassification of one lease payment that was recorded in ed that will need to ultimately it's to be paid for out of debt service. So we'll reclassify that. And then we'll prepare the reports on a fund by fund basis, which will help be able to identify every little thing for next month.
Any other questions?
Have we received any additional payments from the state?
Yes, so during the budget stalemate, the comptroller released one of the prior fiscal year 17 payments, which came in, and then they did get the The new evidence-based funding model has not been completely evaluated, so we don't know what our exact funding will be, but there is a hold harmless component in there which says no district shall receive less than their fiscal year 17. So they've already recalculated that. As you know, they missed 2 payments to us in August. So we have now received those 2 payments at the beginning of September. And then it appears now we're going to get back on cycle. So we should be getting those on the 10th and the 20th of each month. And it appears those are starting to roll in.
Any other questions?
We'll talk about the cash flows during tax anticipation.
Can you speak up, please?
We'll talk about the cash flows during the tax anticipation.
Good. Hearing none, please open voting.
The online vote is open for item F4. The vote is closed. The vote is unanimous for item F4. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Next is item F5, Student Activities Report for August 2017. Entertain a motion to accept the student activities reports presented in your package.
So moved.
It's a motion by Member Costick,
Second.
second by Member Lucetti.
The report was provided. Kelly's available if anyone has any questions or concerns regarding the student activity report.
And your cover memo does a great job of explaining the variances, so thank you. Any other questions? None? Okay, please open voting.
The vote is open for item F5. The vote is closed. The vote is unanimous. The motion is passed for item F5.
Thank you. Next, personnel report.
All right, personnel report, under employment, Desiree Baden, assistant girls swimming diving coach. Luke Bell, head boys swimming diving coach. Doug Blevins, painter. Megan Cremio, assistant girls tennis coach. Kathy Hines, bus driver. Connie Huffsteller, cafeteria worker. Jeffrey Johnson, assistant football coach. Raymond Hobda, assistant football coach. Sean Maher, international club sponsor. Christine Milasek, matron. Sylvia Oliver, bus driver. Michael Piaczynski, assistant girls golf and assistant wrestling coach. Marissa Rosandich, assistant boys soccer coach. Ryan Stepinski, assistant boys cross country coach. Corin Teske, assistant girls volleyball coach. Melissa Vanderstad, speech club sponsor. Kathleen Villa, payroll clerk. Brian Willis Jr., key club sponsor. And Andrew Wingate, assistant girls volleyball coach. I ask the board to approve these employment recommendations as presented.
Entertain a motion to accept the employment report as presented.
So moved.
For motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any questions for Rob at this time?
Could you please define what a matron is?
Our matrons are someone that, they handle all the laundry at our schools when it comes to the towels they use in our PE or towels used in our kitchens or any other of our facilities. They also help with trash removal during our lunch periods.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open for item F6. Vote is closed. It's unanimous. Motion is passed.
Thank you.
Under retirement, Judy Vallejo, physical education teacher at Lincoln Way East High School, has to retire at the conclusion of the 2021-2022 school year. I ask the board to approve this retirement recommendation as presented.
Is there a motion to approve the retirement report as presented?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second? Second. Any questions regarding the retirement report? Hearing none, please open the voting.
The vote is open for item F7. The vote is closed. The vote is unanimous. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Next.
Under resignations, Sandra Filkins, bus driver. Sandy Heinberg, bookkeeper. Christine Jansky, paraprofessional. Joel Newton, bus driver. Karen Pettigo, financial secretary. Holly Wang, international club sponsor at Linkway Central High School. Raymond Logren, financial secretary.
Is there a motion to accept the resignation report as presented?
He's going to read the rest.
Oh, you're going to do leaves?
Leaves gets bunched in here. Under leaves, Karen Eilert is asking for a 7-week FMLA leave at the conclusion of her maternity leave. And Jacqueline Savage is asking for an 11-week FMLA leave at the conclusion of her maternity leave. I ask the board to approve these personnel recommendations as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Member Lucetti, second.
Second.
Member Costick. Any questions regarding this report? Hearing none.
The online vote is open for item F8. The vote is closed, unanimous. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Next is item F9, 2017-2018 compensation report.
In compliance with state law, the board must approve the compensation reports for non-certified staff over $75,000, and then the teacher administrator salary report. Both will be posted on our website upon your approval.
Is there a motion to accept the compensation report as presented? The motion, is there a second? Second. Any discussion or questions?
So the ROTC instructors are on here because they're not certified teachers, is that one?
Correct. They're TRS versus IMRF, correct.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
The vote is open for item F9. Do you want to verbally give me your vote? I can put it in.
He's here. There we go.
Sorry about that.
Vote is closed. The vote is unanimous. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Next is item F11, policy, second reading. F10, boy, I am just all over the pressure of voting. Appointment of new members, District 210 Advisory Committee.
We would ask for the appointment of the following members: Janet Ritter, Brian Walcott, Michelle Burke, Riley Sticks, Allison Burns, and Grace Casey to District 210 Advisory for the current school year.
Is there a motion to accept the list of proposed new members as presented? There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none.
The vote is open for item F10. The vote is closed. It's unanimous. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Next item is item F11, policy, second reading.
Policy second reading, the board has had these now for about 45 days. The one new policy would be 7-275, orders to forego life-sustaining treatment. That would be the only additional new policy. That would be do not resuscitate order, and it has the steps that we would have to follow to enact such a policy or provision. therefore to approve these policy updates as presented.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the policies as presented?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments regarding the policies?
Just one quick, on the press advisory board, I know they're recommending when everything comes back, are they also the ones that are writing these policies? I mean, the recommended language, is that who's writing them?
Yes, so that's a team that's writing the languages based upon any changes in legislation, but also they review all policies within, I believe it's a 4-year cycle.
What was the impetus behind 7.275?
We do have students that do have a do not resuscitate in place, and so the purpose of a policy is to convene a meeting so that everyone's on the same page, be it school nurse, case manager, teacher. You don't, if the teacher dials 911 and doesn't know, so it's the purpose of anyone having contact in a supervisory manner over that student will be part of that meeting.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
The vote is open for item F11. The vote is closed. It's unanimous. The motion is passed.
Thank you. Next is item F12, surface shield property tax abatement.
This is an item that was on the agenda at our 2 meetings ago, and Patrick Hogan, I believe, is still here from the Village of Tinley Park. If any board member has additional questions, we did provide some additional information. Everything is in public content. If anyone has any questions or concerns regarding a potential property tax abatement.
So they're not actually purchasing, Surface Shield is not actually purchasing this building, right? They're leasing it?
Leasing, correct, Patrick?
I mean, is that typical? Normally when I think of it, I always think new building, like new development, right?
Yes.
But then they're not even purchasing the building. And, the example given, which I can talk about in a second, but, where it starts to kick in the full, where they would be paying the full tax is in year 5, and it's a 7-year lease, correct?
Correct.
So, it's not, they're not making a long-term commitment necessarily, a medium term, but they're not buying this building.
Right. They're making a $100,000 investment in the building, and they're also going to be $600,000 equipment. I understand that would affect the assessment of the building. We're just trying to eliminate vacancy and also really focus on the type of jobs, because we can stick a warehouse in there with forklift drivers that employ 10 people. This is 55 manufacturing jobs that are going to average around $60,000 a year. That's what we're pushing for good jobs.
They did agree to work with this school, correct?
Correct. The CEO is actually here tonight. He has a question about the background.
Hi.
They did.
Right by you.
The analysis that was in here, sorry. The last one. Anyways, the analysis that was on there, basically the assumption is that if Surface Shield does not lease the building, it remains vacant. And so that's showing, the case that was put in here was just showing, basically, I guess if you're the worst case scenario. So, I mean, that's one extreme. I mean, would this building not be leased if it wasn't, you know, for 7 years?
I'm not going to say that one way or another. I mean, we are in the state of Illinois, and so the biggest competition I have right now is keeping it from going to Indiana. And we're starting to see more vacancies. I have the same retail sector as well, so I'm just trying to do what we can to get solid jobs when they are available. I understand what you're saying. Like maybe it does get loose in years here with the product. It's not guaranteed to get years with this one.
All I'm saying is I think when we're presented with something to look at, we have to we usually do like a best case, base case, worst case. I mean, this is kind of, I'm just calling it out for everyone because I think that was kind of, you know, it was presented at one extreme in the material that was in the board information.
The assumption is made that it's either not leased for 5 years or it's this proposal for 7 years, but the 5 year with the abatement. So.
It is currently empty, and one section has been empty for, I think, pushing a year, and the other section just became vacant recently. We're taking the entire building.
It's just, I mean, from my standpoint, it's some, you know, I know this just came up last month, but it's something that, you know, the district hasn't done before. My concern is, I mean, I think we need a lot more information before we move forward on something that, you know, if everyone who is leasing the building or is considering leasing the building in the district comes for an abatement, and we're kind of transferring I know it's not, it's still the EAB, and I know the complications of calculating the tax, but still moving the, you know, the burden to others in the district. I mean, I think it's hard for us at this point, when we have negative cash balances, to move right into being an economic development engine. I mean, I think our, you know, how we have to provide for growth is to make sure that the schools are, you know, in the best shape and are, you know, attracting people to the area. So I think it's hard to kind of set that precedent. I know you would vote each time, but I also think, you know, there was a discussion in the legislature about, I know it was about tax increment financing districts, but there was talk about, well, if you're abating any property, how could that impact, you know, what you get from in state aid? Now, it didn't move forward. It might never move forward, but I mean, I think you have to have a much more in-depth analysis done before we can move forward. Because I would like to see, you know, have other districts done this, and again, you know, I'm not 100% knowledgeable on this, but it would seem like this seems like it's usually when you have new development, and then this isn't even buying the building, it's they're leasing the building. So that's just my.
This actually is not going to set precedents because the Will County Center for Economic Development does put them through a score sheet. There's a certain amount of standards. It has to be a certain amount of jobs. The jobs have to pay so much. I think it has to be a certain industry before we even consider it. So if another company would come in, like I'll use the warehouse example, and it's 10, you wouldn't even consider offering it for the partnership. So there is a score part that does go.
I believe you mentioned there was two portions of the building that were vacant. One was vacant for about a year, and this one just became vacant. Are you aware of anyone that's looked at that portion that's been vacant for the past year? Any companies looking to, are you looking, aware of anything like that?
Yeah, and the ones that I have is more of a service type of business where like you work in entertainment, they'll employ like two people. And really struggling coming up with one manufacturing house. They have a much higher budget.
So if a landlord is looking at this and they're going to go, their option is 0, where they're not going to rent it, why wouldn't they make concessions on the lease as opposed to coming to, you know, the school districts and the village?
Well,
I mean, because they're the actual owner of the building.
They would wait to get a regular warehouse to go in there. That would come along. Or they would like to ask us to change it so it could be an indoor softball training facility. But that's not what we have it zoned for right now. There have been other tenants that want to come in, but it's not the best use of the building. This is one of the best use